Stocks on Wall Street end session higher, driven by inflows into the tech stocks. Nasdaq gains 200 points. Investors await the September CPI report due today. Asian markets too open higher, tracking the gains on Wall Street. The GIFT Nifty is indicating a positive start for the Indian market. Crude prices surge after US announces sanctions on two Russian oil major companies. Gold prices rise 2% as geopolitical tensions renew safe haven demand. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal says India is in dialogue with the US for a trade deal as the talks are progressing and a fair and equitable trade agreement is expected soon. Defence Ministry approves capital acquisition proposal worth around 79,000 crore rupees aimed at strengthening the overall defence story for the country and strengthening the operational capabilities of Indian Army, Navy and Air Force. The Tri-Service will acquire new missile system, high mobility vehicles, lightweight torpedoes among others. And pharma major Cipla signs an agreement with US-based Eli Lilly acquiring the rights to distribute its blockbuster weight loss drug Mounjaro. Now, the drug, which is launched in India in March, will be sold by Cipla under a different brand name called Urpic across the country. Hello, good morning. You've tuned into Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. I'm Vinny Motiwala. Thank you so much for tuning in as always. While yesterday we saw a gap up opening for the Indian markets, then we saw a bit of a decline by the end of the day and the Nifty closed almost at the day's lowest point. Gave up all those gains. Today, what's the story coming in for the Indian markets? How are the Asian markets doing this morning? Let's look at that. Asian markets seem to have opened up on the positive footing as well. So let's keep an eye on that. Whether you look at the Hang Seng, managing to hold on to gains of almost 0.8%. Taiwan index, on the other hand, is opened up with cuts of 0.4%. Other than that, we have ASX 200, which is very muted in today's trading session. Slight bit of a negative bias right now. 0.1% of decline is what we're seeing coming in for the ASX 200. So that is what we're watching out for. The Japanese index, Nikkei, that's managing to hold on to strong gains. Shanghai is managing to hold on to gains. So a couple of indices which are trading in the red, but most of them have opened up in the green. Let's look at the Nifty implied open. What's the indication coming in there for the Indian markets? Positive start. 41-point uptick is what we're watching out for from the Nifty implied open today. So let's keep an eye out on that, whether this is going to be sustaining or, in the last 1 hour of trade yesterday, what we saw, a bit of, a downtick that came in for the market. Is that something that's going to continue, or maybe an uptick is what the markets will continue, is something we'll keep an eye out on. As of now, Nifty implied open is up almost 40 points. But a lot of global market action that's happened, whether US market that we talk about, European markets also. How is all this going to be impacting our Indian markets? We have a team of research here to set you up for trade, tell you which are the important stocks to watch out for, as well as the cues in the world of F&O. First up, let's go across to Vivek, who's here to tell us what are the important market cues that we should be keeping an eye out on today. Good morning, Vivek.
Well, good morning. Like you mentioned at the start of the show, largely positive set of cues is what you've got from overnight equity markets. But we will need to keep an eye out for as far as the commodity space too is concerned. Like you can see on the screen, all of the US markets are led by the tech-heavy Nasdaq did quite well. All of them ended with gains. On the other hand, oil prices for the second straight session post-US actions on Russian oil companies actually surged almost 5%. Today showing a bit of a downtick, but now Brent over the $65 a barrel mark. Now, along with that, gold prices after 2 sessions of significant cuts yesterday rallied almost 2%. So that will be another commodity that we will have our eyes on. Talking about the Indian markets yesterday, opened up very strong, almost a 400-point gap up is what we saw. But after that, cooled off significantly, off 200 points from the day's highest point. What led the rally yesterday? It was the IT pack. Positive news regarding trade deal. Hopes are there going ahead and fructifying. And along with that, we are also talking about some easing coming in as far as the H1B renewal process is concerned. So that aided the rally as far as IT was concerned. On the other hand, the entire oil and gas pack, the entire crude sensitive pack saw significant selling pressure. This on the back of the fact that oil prices spiked on the sanctions that we mentioned before. Now, key to watch out for in today's trading session, there's one listing, Midwest. That particular IPO will list today. Along with that, key results, Dr. Reddy, SBI Life, Coforge, SBI Cards, among a few names that will report their results today. And Colgate-Palmolive as well as Sagar Cement will react to their results. Asian markets, GIFT Nifty, all indicating a mild green start for our markets today.
Okay, Vivek, mild green is what we're watching out for our markets, but important stocks that we should be keeping on our radar this morning. We have Upasna joining in with us to give us that list. Good morning, Upasna.
Good morning, Winnie. First up, let me start with Colgate. It reported its Q2 numbers. Overall, it was a weak quarter for the company. There has been a degrowth across the board. The revenue and EBITDA has seen a downtick of nearly about 6% on a Y-on-Y basis, while PAT has declined as high as 17% on Y-on-Y basis. Now, one of the biggest story for today is Cipla. The company and Eli Lilly has signed an agreement for a weight loss drug, that is tirzepatide, and analysts say that this could add 3% to the company's domestic revenue and 1.5% to the EBITDA in next 3 years. Now, defense stocks will also be in focus as DAC has cleared procurement proposals worth 79,000 crores. Hence, stocks like BDL, BEML, Data Patterns, Astra Micro, all these stocks will be on our radar today. Aluminium stocks also in our focus as LME aluminium prices breached $2,850 per ton, and hence the stocks that will be in focus on the back of this will be Hindalco, Vedanta and even Nalco. Sagar Cement also reported its Q2 numbers. Revenue has seen a growth of 26%, which is why the volume was strong, but overall result was weak as shutdown cost and higher employee cost weighed down the results. Sirma SGS also in focus as Premium Energies and company have announced an acquisition of K Solar for 170 crores. Keynes Technology is the next one on our radar. The ARM Keynes holding to buy 7% stake in Sensonic GmbH. NTPC Green also in focus as the company's wind capacity in Gujarat has been declared operational. And lastly, Hero MotoCorp. It partners with MotoGP to bring its premium motorcycles to UK. So all in all these stocks will be on our radar today.
Okay, Upasna, thank you so much for that. But let's move on to Sudarshan, who's finally here to tell us what's happening in the world of F&O and what are the important levels now that we should keep an eye out on. Good morning, Sudarshan.
Good morning, Vinny. So yesterday we were talking about the record high level, and that was courtesy the big indication that we are getting from GIFT Nifty, which had indicated that market opened with a gain of almost 400 points, and we might see an extension to Diwali celebration. But all the big hopes came grounding by the time we closed. But good part was that big gains that IT stocks had seen, that helped Nifty close in the green. So today also, that yesterday we saw Nasdaq closing with gains of almost 200 points. So today also we might see support coming from IT pack. Now for today, GIFT Nifty is indicating a start with a gain of around 40 to 45 points. As far as flows are concerned, it remains healthy. While in the cash market yesterday we saw FIs selling, DIs remain on the buy side, but in the derivative market, FIs continue to be on the buy side. Yesterday also in the derivative market, they have bought more than ₹4,600 crore. They have added long positions of more than 10,000 contracts and also have reduced short positions of more than 13,000 contracts. Now FI long exposure has increased to 24%. In the option data, now major activities are seen in the range of 26,000 to 26,200 on the both side, put as well as call. So on the call side, 26,200 has seen maximum addition was more than 50 lakh shares in the open interest, with premium rising to almost 35. And on the put side, we saw premium falling for both 26,000 and 26,100. So support for Nifty will remain around 25,790, and the first resistance would be around 26,135. As far as Nifty Bank is concerned, support would be around 57,800. Resistance would be around 58,600. Samman Capital has come out of the band. I'll keep it on few stocks that had seen fresh shorts. Majority of the stocks have been seeing short covering, but two pack Hitachi Energy yesterday saw fresh shorts, and OMC pack also you would have seen that crude has been moving higher. Brent is now around $66 per barrel, so keep an eye on all three OMC names.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Sudarshan. Keep an eye on all those important cues in the world of F&O. But let's shift focus. And Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal said that India and the United States are making progress in the negotiations for a proposed bilateral trade agreement. Now, he said that both the nations are in dialogue for a potential trade deal. Commerce Secretary Rajesh Agarwal visited US and met his counterparts as well. Now, Goyal also added that India continues to engage with the United States and talks are progressing and hopes to work towards a fair and equitable trade agreement in the near future. So important updates that are coming in on that front. But on that note, we're going to actually sip into a very short break. After the break, we'll get you the latest developments from the White House in our special segment, Trump Watch. Stay tuned in. Welcome back to Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Now, getting you the latest on Trump-related developments, we have Dia joining you with us in our special segment, Trump Watch. Dia, over to you.
Good morning. Starting off with a fresh statement from the White House that said a new set of sanctions on Russia will apply a lot of pressure on Moscow, suggesting Trump could eventually decide to ramp up the measures. Responding to this, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that new U.S. sanctions were an attempt to put pressure on Russia, adding that they would not affect the Russian economy. He also called them an unfriendly act that does not strengthen its ties with the U.S. and added that Moscow's response to strikes deep into Russia will be very serious and overwhelming, adding that Russia would never bow down to such pressure. Also, on the possibility of a summit with Trump in Budapest, the president said Russia wants to continue dialogue with the U.S. and that a dialogue is always better than war. Trump also dismissed an effort by some Israeli lawmakers to push forward with annexation of the occupied West Bank, saying Israel is not going to do anything with the West Bank. And lastly, the White House announced that U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping will meet next Thursday on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. That's all for today. Now back to you.
Thank you so much for that, Dia. But let's move on. And what happened in the U.S. market on Wall Street? That ended higher in the overnight session after rebounding from earlier losses, tracking a slew of corporate earnings. We have CNBC's Bertha Coombs here to give us a wrap on what happened on Wall Street.
Markets were up across the major indexes in Thursday trading, rebounding from earlier losses in the day. Investors buying on the strength of corporate earnings. The Dow was up 144 points. The S&P 500 gained 39, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq added 201 points. More than 30 people, including NBA head coach Chauncey Billups and player Terry Rozier, were indicted today as part of an FBI probe into multi-million-dollar gambling and sports rigging operations linked to organized crime families. Billups, who coaches the Portland Trail Blazers and is in the Hall of Fame, was arrested over alleged involvement with rigged poker games. Rozier is accused in another case of participating in a scheme to use insider information for bets on NBA games. The NBA put both Billups and Rozier on immediate leave following their arrests. And President Trump on Thursday pardoned Binance founder Jinping Zhao, who was convicted of money laundering charges while running the world's largest crypto exchange. Zhao, who has deep ties to the Trump family's World Liberty financial crypto venture, has repeatedly lobbied the White House for a pardon. In a statement on the pardon, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said there were no allegations of fraud or identifiable victims in Zhao's case and blamed the Biden administration for an overzealous prosecution of the crypto industry. That's what's going on here in the U.S. Back over to you in Mumbai.
Thank you so much for that. And let's move on. And our colleagues at CNBC actually spoke to experts on whether this market is losing its steam and what are the factors that are going to be weighing in terms of the sentiment. Listen in.
There's three factors causing the markets to lose steam in the likely nearer term, and that's inflation, the China situation, and the shutdown. So starting with inflation, we're finally going to see CPI tomorrow, and that's likely going to be firm, up almost 0.4% month over month, driven by tariffs on goods prices. And also oil prices rallying again, another factor to drive inflation higher. November 1st isn't here yet, so we don't know exactly what's going to happen between the U.S. and China, so that's causing uncertainty. And then the shutdown now about 3 or more weeks long. When is that going to end? So I think, and then finally, looking at momentum stocks, which have been what has driven this rally higher, November through January tends to be seasonally weak in terms of momentum stocks. I think they will likely ride the market lower for the shorter term.
Just because someone's having trouble making a purchase now doesn't mean that they're going to have trouble paying for what they've already bought, right? And so I think, if you think about where you can take advantage of, an improvement in the economy or deterioration in the economy, right? If the Fed's cutting interest rates, who benefits from that? Well, typically financials benefit from a steepening yield curve. Typically financials benefit from volatility. So it's a way of saying that if I'm wrong on the consumer and there's more volatility around the numbers, then we could see financials benefit. And if I'm right and the consumers begin to fall apart and the Fed cuts interest rates aggressively, then you'll see the yield curve steepen, and banks should also take advantage of that. So it's kind of a nice way to hedge. If you look at other places, there are places you probably want to avoid. I think housing is a great example.
Okay, so that's the latest update that we have coming in terms of a lot of commentary from the US markets. But let's move on, and in some other news that we have coming in for you all as well. Target has actually said that it is set to cut 1,800 corporate jobs that are there, which is going to be the first round of major layoffs in a decade that we'll see coming in. Now, obviously, this is going to be an important one in terms of layoff. Minneapolis-based retailer has said that about 1,000 employees will let go and other 800 positions will remain unfilled, which is roughly 80% of the corporate workforce. The incoming CEO, Michael, says that the move is meant to simplify operations and speed up the growth. After several years of stagnant sales, he also said and called out the cuts a necessary step towards rebuilding the company's future. Okay, and let's shift focus now to US EV maker Tesla that reported a 12% increase in terms of its revenue for the third quarter, following 2 quarters of decline. The company's profit falls despite a record revenue number. Let's go across to my colleague Parikshit, who spoke to Dan of Wedbush Securities on the impact of US tariffs on Tesla and its entry into the Indian market. Listen in.
400 million. Let's think about it. Maybe like 15% of the profit cut is because of tariffs or maybe a ripple effect. Yeah, so it's real, right? In terms of the impact. And that's on the big question is, especially when you look at robotics and autonomous, does that start to get exclusions from a tariff perspective, just given administration and some of this arms race with China? So I think that continues to be something that I think we'll be seeing more of in the coming months, potential developments. Rome wasn't built in a day. So when you look at India, they were cautious on that market. They've aggressively gone after. Now, I think you're going to continue to see a significant expansion there. And this is something you will start to get much more volumes in 2026 and into next year. But I view this as sort of baby steps to a much broader strategy.
Okay, on that note, we're going to slip into a very short break. We'll get you the cues from the world of commodities on the other side. Stay tuned in. Thanks for staying tuned into Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Now let's get to the latest update in the world of commodities. For that, we have Manisha Gupta joining in with us. Good morning, Manisha. And what are we watching out for today? Crude, gold, what is it on your radar?
I'll start with the crude oil prices, Vinny, because we've seen 7.5% of gains this week in crude oil prices. This is the best weekly gain in crude in the last 5 months. Well, we are looking at the U.S. Announcing sanctions on Russia's Rosneft and Lukoil, apart from various other entities as well. Now, this is a direct one on the oil producers itself. And remember, Lukoil exports crude to 40 countries. Rosneft has various refinery participation when it comes to India as well. So this is making matters more serious, and that's the reason you have seen the reaction come in for prices. But then again, you are also looking at the European Union imposing a 19-sanction package on Russia as well. So that premium continues to be in crude oil prices. The street will watch out for the US and China trade talks that's happening in South Korea in the next week, though. What also has seen gains is the metal prices. Copper gained 2% overnight. Aluminum also is up 2% overnight. We're looking at a 3-year highs in aluminum there. Steel prices have gained up as the World Steel Association report comes out about lower steel production globally for the month of September. Iron ore prices also seem to be ending this week on a positive note, and it seems like a good week for base metal prices, not so much for the precious metal prices, where gold and silver continue to trade in the negative even today.
Okay, Manisha, thank you so much for that, keeping an eye out on those important updates in the world of commodities. But let's move on. And the government has actually amended the IT rules to allow only senior bureaucrats as well as or police officers to issue takedown orders for online content. Now, the move follows a legal battle with Elon Musk's social media platform X on contentious policies. Ashmit is joining with us to give us more details on this one.
Well, the government amending the IT rules, introducing safeguards with respect to takedown powers that it has under Section 79 of the IT Act. So what are these changes? Well, there are three key changes that have been made. Number one, the government under these new rules says only senior government officers of the rank of Joint Secretary or higher will be authorized to issue takedown orders. In the case of police, only an officer of the rank of DIG or higher will be authorized to issue these takedown orders. The concern was within the government that they were seeing increasing cases of even ASI level officers in the police issuing takedown orders to the social media companies. That's one. The second is any such directions that are passed by high-ranking government officers have to be well-reasoned, have to have a very clear legal backing, and need to very clearly say what is the illegal content that they're looking to flag. Number three, there needs to now be a monthly review mechanism of all these takedown orders that are passed by a specific department or by an arm of the government. Now, the government very clearly says that this has nothing to do with any ongoing cases before any high courts or Supreme Court, but it is worth mentioning that earlier this year, Elon Musk-backed X had challenged these very takedown powers in the Karnataka High Court, had questioned the lack of safeguards. In fact, their exact words were, their concern was that various government officers had started issuing takedown orders, their exact words being, any Tom, Dick and Harry officer is issuing these takedown orders. Now, the High Court, of course, had held in favor of the government, had rejected X's application, but X is keeping its powder dry, looking to challenge that before a higher court. But clearly, the government saying that we're doing our bit by introducing greater safeguards under Section 79 to the takedown powers that it currently has.
Okay, Ashmit, thank you so much for that important update there. But with that, we're absolutely out of time on this edition of Power Breakfast. Nifty implied open, indicating a slight bit of a positive start for the Indian market. Keep an eye out on that. Up next, your Bazaar Morning Call to take you through all that action.